Pakistan Army is Pakistan's most powerful institution. Apart from its professional commitments of defending the borders and fighting the terrorists, the bad ones, of course, because the good ones are used as a matter of state policy to bleed India through 1,000 cuts. It is also a commercial entity worth around $27 billion, and it sells everything from baby food to cosmetics to fertilizers and run banks. And apart from all this, it also runs a hybrid political system where politicians from across the hues have to remain in the good books of the Pakistani army to have any hopes of getting to the higher political offices. Any aberration is very strictly dealt by the generals. Every election since the 1970 elections have seen the patronizing hands of the generals, and we all know what happened after the 1970 elections. Imran Khan, once an army protege and now a self-declared rebel, is however putting the army in a spot of bother with his utterances and actions. To discuss the situation arising out of this rebellion, and what impact it is going to have on the Pakistani army, and is the Pakistani army's hands on the civil institutions loosening, and there have been reports that because of support for Imran Khan, the Pakistani army stands divided. We have with us Shri Rana Banerji, former Special Secretary, Cabinet Secretariat, who headed the Pakistan division. Welcome to Samvad, sir.
Thank you, Mayank. It's a privilege to be on your show.
Sir, to start off with, a very simple question. Why does Pakistan army love politics?
Well, I guess it has something to do with the very history of its evolution of the Pakistani state. Right from the outset, it has been beset by a quest for identity and the insecurity of partition, where they fail to get the due assets, both material and in the perception of the people, the political situation also didn't play to their advantage. Thereafter, you found a lot of dilly-dallying in the process of constitution formation. And in course of this process, the army developed a dislike of politicians, which became pervasive as time went on. So they felt that civilian politicians were just not able to run the country properly. In course of time also, because of this insecurity, you saw the army emerging as the only institution which believed that they were essential for the protection and maintenance of the sovereignty and integrity of the country. So they drew upon this mantle to keep interfering in politics.
Sir, Imran Khan.
In fact, you found that, in more recent times, when martial law could not be resorted to because of international opprobrium and also domestic dislike of the phenomenon, they tried to evolve 2 or 3 different modes of governance. So one of these was the pulling strings from behind the curtain mode, where the army would control the key decisions and left the day-to-day governance to an elected civilian regime. There could be another mode of this, modification of this model, which was the selector or the umpire mode, wherein the army would be called in as an arbiter to oversee the distribution of power between political actors or to resolve conflicts between institutions whenever they felt that things were getting out of hand. And the back to the barracks mode, which was an ideal situation in an evolving democracy, it never happened in Pakistan. So the 2018 elections saw a fine-tuning of this, what you have called the hybrid model of governance, where they felt that the tested politicians, both the Zardaris and the Sharifs, were of the army disliked them, and they felt that they should experiment with the newly sort of emerging actor in the scene who had been around as a sort of single participant in Imran Khan, because of certain amount of uh, charisma that he enjoyed as the cricket captain and the winner of the Pakistani World Cup, also for the building of the hospital in the name of his mother, and so they felt that he was a person who could be brought in as a politician with a cleaner record, and that is what saw them go for this model in 2008.
So they brought in Imran Khan as a, I would say, a pliable. They selected Imran Khan as a pliable player, but he turned out to be a captain. And ever since it has been like a very acrimonious divorce of sorts between couples, where Imran Khan has refused to lie down and go down into history silently as the others did. So, what was the prime reason behind this confrontation between Imran Khan and the Pakistani army?
Well, the prime reason definitely was the same old one when a politician who has been brought in as a protege starts believing that he can actually start governing or calling the shots in ruling the country. And this fructifies in the postings and transfers within the military. And the moment when he opposed the transfer out of General Faiz Hamid, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid as DGISI, because he believed that Faiz Hamid would be the right person to become the chief of the army who would support Imran Khan for a second term. That is when he fell out with the then army chief, General Bajwa, who, of course, did not dislike General Faiz to begin with. He was his protege, in fact. But he said that he has to do a corps command if he has to become eligible to become the chief. Now, at that moment, you see, by that time, Imran Khan had started believing in the powers of the occult, which he believed that his third wife had. And she seemed to feel that this was not the propitious moment to send him out from the command of the ISI. So they dilly dallied for a month. Bajwa went along with this delay. But at this moment, Imran sort of started spreading the canard that he would determine who would be the new ISI chief, and he would interview the generals who would be eligible. He demanded a fresh panel to be sent to him. And all this was completely to the dislike of the army leadership. And this is what sort of led to the rift becoming wider, and that was the beginning of the end for Imran.
Sir, in hindsight, do you feel that the Pakistan Army's decision to back the opposition effort for the no confidence and then the removal of Imran Khan was was badly timed, because what we have seen that a very weak, indecisive government is in power. It is unable either to control the economy or terrorism, which is on the rise once again. And whereas they have let free Imran Khan to play his favorite role of a rabble rouser as an opposition leader. So, and do you sense that this action has basically plunged the country into greater political crisis?
Well, greater political turmoil, certainly, but I don't believe that the uh, Pakistan army deliberately backed this decision to, galvanize the opposition. They had already started to come together, and their, cementing force was the belief that if, in case Imran Khan succeeded in bringing General Fayed Hamid as the next chief, then they would be consigned to the opposition for a further indefinitely long period. So at this time, they resorted to a perfectly democratic option of tabling a vote of no confidence. And really speaking, uh, the army did not go out of its way to sort of provide impetus to this vote of no confidence. It is the effort of the joint combined opposition. I also do not believe that this was a weak and indecisive government when it came to power. In fact, the problem was the severe economic constraints that were coming up. If at that time they had decided to go for elections then itself, then this coalition would have got the people's confidence. But what happened, if you come up against the individual ambitions of leaders. This was a moment which had been long cherished by the present Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif, who had always been under the shadow of his elder brother, uh,
Mhm.
Prime Minister Mohammad Nawaz Sharif. This time Nawaz was disqualified, and Shahbaz had got the endorsement of the PPP leader Asif Zardari, who has played the role of kingmaker very effectively in cementing political opposition and alliances in the past. And once he got that nod, he felt that he should have a reasonably long enough stint in power as the prime minister. It's a different matter that thereafter the difficult economic situation saw them first bringing in Miftah Ismail, who was a trained economist, also a person in the private sector who has done well as in running some companies. But uh, when he gave the advice to go back to the IMF conditionalities or to negotiate a fresh accord with the IMF, this led to prices rising, and then there was a lot of discontent in the party, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, and they felt that the uh, wizard in the past who had managed to infuse dollars into the economy, that is the Shah, who is also a relative of Nawaz Sharif, should be brought back, and he would produce a magic wand to settle all the economic ails. So they got rid of Muftah Ismail and they brought in Ishaq which complicated matters. Ishaq could not do anything to reverse the economic slide. And that is where the position is so bad here at present. And all this has, of course, given the opportunity to Imran Khan to heighten the discontent and to go to the public. He has a certain amount of popularity, which he has tried to build on. But again, I have some definite views about how uh, this card has been played to the hilt, and possibly now the popularity will begin to ebb.
So we have seen that in, Pakistan army is metaphorically speaking the holy cow in Pakistan. Nobody can criticize the Pakistani army, but Imran Khan has seems to be mainstreaming this criticism. I'll read out the tweet he sent out when Asif Munir was appointed as the chief of the Pakistani army, and and he shared Muhammad Ali Jinnah's quote. I'll be using that quote. Quote, do not forget that the armed forces are the servants of the people, and you do not make national policy. It is we, the civilians, who decide these issues, and it is your duty to carry out these tasks with which you are entrusted. Unquote. Has any politician, in the recent memory at least, I would say that any politician in Pakistan actually tried to take on the Pakistani army in the way Imran Khan has?
Well, you see, yes and no. In the past, politicians have taken on the Pakistan army. Nawaz Sharif did, but not using the sort of language which Imran Khan had used in the past. This particular tweet that you mentioned is almost, decent and gentlemanly in the sense that he has used civilized language at least. But in the past, it has come actually too little and too late. Already in the past, he used such bad language that he has alienated the senior leadership of the Pakistan army in no uncertain terms. And this became very clear in the October 27, 1922, that is last year, the press conference, the unprecedented joint press conference, which was in which the DGISI and the DGISP they appeared together. And in that press conference, the DGISI made it very clear that this type of language would not be acceptable. And in the morning you say something, and in the evening then you indicate that you are willing to meet with the chief or initiate some measures to bring them back onto the same page. But again, if that doesn't happen, then you change your colors and start abusing the army leadership, and particularly the former Army Chief General Bajwa. So that had alienated the senior generals who function as a collegiate group, and they generally rally behind the army chief. This has been the tradition. So, although Imran Khan, in the build up to the selection of the army chief, tried his best to make the appointment very, very controversial in the hope that somehow his own protege, General Faiz Hamid, would make it to the top slot. It didn't happen. And after that, you see, he has tried to appear as holier than thou and talked about, what Jinnah said in the past. So I don't think that the army is going to forget or forgive in a hurry what all he said in the past, in the recent past.
So whereas he must have alienated the senior officers. There are reports that the lower rungs of the army is pretty fascinated with what Imran Khan is doing. Maybe because of his radicalization, maybe of because of the situation, the overall social and civil situation in Pakistan. So, do you feel that he has been able to divide the Pakistani army into two groups?
Well, he did encourage this type of division in the build up to the selection of the army chief. In fact, he had a certain amount of popularity, and in social media, he had these armies trolling in his support. Also, he had support of the youth brigade in the urban areas who blindly believed what he said, and to a certain extent, even in the army, not only at the level of lower ranks but also among retired generals, he had a certain amount of following, starting from General Ali Quli Khan Khattak and then General Zahirul Islam, who actually had a role in bringing him into power in 2018. They openly campaigned for him. Also, another senior retired general who was very well regarded in military terms, General Naeem Lodi, who was after retirement defense secretary for a while. Even he openly supported Imran Khan to the extent that General Bajwa was forced to temporarily cancel his pension while these agitations were going on. So there was a certain amount of division, definitely. But Bajwa, even before he retired, he tried his best to contain this damage. He went to the garrisons and he tried to explain both to the army rank and file and also to senior generals as why he had fallen out with Imran. He had tried his best to accommodate Imran despite that, because he was so much upset about being shifted from power. Imran had developed what the army saw to be unacceptable megalomaniac tendencies about wanting to come back to power, and this they felt was not acceptable to them. And this resentment was articulated and voiced very succinctly in the joint press conference which I referred to. So after that, for the new army chief, one of the main tasks or priority tasks that he had to attend to and he has been attending to was to end this dissension within the army ranks, both at the lower levels and at the senior levels. And he has proceeded to do this in a very cautious and quiet manner. And of course, he will, in due course, bring into position his own favorites. And he is waiting for. There were two major retirements. One of Faiz Hamid, which was promptly accepted. The other was of Azhar Abbas, who felt that he should rightly have got a chance to come to four-star status, but he had a very good record. But when he didn't make it, he retired. So there were two important vacancies that were there at the three-star level. So General Munir went by the Bajwa consensus to begin with, but then gradually he has started to bring in his own people. He has chosen General Muhammad Saeed as the Chief of General Staff, who had earlier worked with him as his deputy in the ISI, and he had a very professionally sound record. Also, he has brought in a few other people. He has brought in a new DGMI, and this is a gradual process which will happen. So he is doing this carefully without ruffling too many feathers. For example, he has not changed the DGISI, nor has he changed the Corps Commander Baluchistan, the latter Asif Ghafoor, who is certainly perceived to have sort of supported anti-Bajwa elements because he was not getting a corps command. Of course, Bajwa accommodated him in the end by sending him to a difficult corps command, albeit. But he recently, Asim Munir, has been going to the hotspots which have been terror affected. And he has also been to Balochistan, and he has not immediately shunted out Asif Munir, though I feel it could still be on the card sooner than later. So these changes will have to be watched closely to see how long Munir takes to consolidate his position as the leader of the Pakistan army. Of course, there is this tradition that when a new chief takes over, he sets the tone in the relationships, and the dissenters quickly fall in line behind the new army chief.
General Asim Munir and Imran Khan have a history. He was removed as DG ISI because Imran wanted him out. So, do you see that this may be perceived hostile? We are not sure as to, because as of now, both sides seem to be settling down on their rhetoric. It's come down. So, do you see collision course between Tehreek-e-Insaf Pakistan and the Pakistan Army? Imran Khan, not basically Tehreek-e-Insaf means Imran Khan and the Pakistani Army, or do you visualize these ripples to be settling down?
Yeah, I think it would be the latter. I don't see them to be on a collision course. In fact, you see, when Asim Munir uh, made this complaint to Imran Khan, he did it in all good spirit, from as far as I can make out, because he felt that the sort of allegations of corruption which were emerging about the conduct of the first lady, that is Bushra Sheikh, Imran Khan's wife, in collusion with some of her old relatives and some politicians in Punjab, including the then chief minister, uh, about corruption, which he felt was redound to the discredit of Prime Minister Imran Khan, who had come with a clean image. So, in all good faith, he had gone and told him about this because he felt this was the right thing to do. Also, Asim Munir is believed to have had, he is believed to have a puritanical streak in him. He's a very honest person. And in his personal conduct, in that of also his relatives and all, he has the image of being a very, very modest general, in the sense that he hasn't acquired too many riches. He still has a small house in the suburbs of Rawalpindi, where his parents stayed, his family, his brother stays, and this hasn't sort of dramatically become a very posh property or anything like that. So he has had this streak of being correct and doing the right things uh, in terms of moral integrity. So uh, his conduct could be explained in that. In fact, this might have helped in the ultimate selection, his selection as army chief, because he was supposed to retire 2 days before Bajwa. But
Mhm.
given the circumstances of this background, uh, Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz Sharif felt that perhaps he would be the right choice in making him the army chief. Since he has become army chief, of course, he has not directly confronted the PTI leadership, but he has given certain firm messages, and he has done it through the civilian political setup and through the legal setup. Because Imran Khan is in the process of, getting disqualified through actions of the election commission and through his own conduct in the Tosha Khana case, selling of the war case, and the foreign funding that his party has got. So, in all these cases, he is going to be implicated. Some of his followers have, in trying to be more loyal to the king, made some very strong utterances which have been anti-army. Azam Swati, for instance, or this other gentleman who had been arrested, Gill, Shahbaz Gill, and now Fawad Chaudhry. So they have been arrested. Sheikh Rashid has been arrested. So through these actions, which are legally defendable, the army may be giving a strong message to Imran to sober down, to behave, or else. To that extent, yes, that is happening.
So that else sounds very ominous because we have had the history of, and this happened after the Arshad Sharif murder in Kenya, where there is a journalist. I'll quote that journalist. He and you spoke of the joint press conference between DG, ISI, and ISPR, and Mohammed Taki, the journalist, after the press conference, tweeted that the way the I'll quoting him in the quote, the way the DG, ISI, and DG, ISPR spoke about the Arshad Sharif murder case and Imran Khan in one breath, one wonders if it lays the groundwork for another Nawab Muhammad Ahmad Khan Kasuri case, in which the former Prime Minister Z.A. Bhutto was ultimately hanged. Unquote. Is it that serious, sir?
No, I think it's carrying the analogy too far. What had happened was that the Arshad Sharif murder, the Imran Khan trollers, PTI supporters were trying to pin the blame on the army and to try to capitalize on a situation which had already happened. To put the record straight, the army preempted him by bringing the record straight, saying that there was no threat perception as far as the MI, military intelligence, was concerned, and they had told this to Arshad Sharif. In fact, it was the other way around. The chief minister of uh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa uh, forced him to go to Dubai. Again, from Dubai to go to Kenya, nobody forced him to leave Dubai. So they put the onus back on the PTI that there must have been something else which was responsible for Arshad Sharif behaving the way it did. And they also put the record very straight. If you read between the lines, the Nadeem Anjum, the DJSI, is saying that, like any other, prominent journalist in Pakistan, he was having his links and line open to the ISI, and the ISI was aware of what Arshad Sharif was doing, although he was by and large supporting the PTI positions after the ouster of Imran Khan. But still, he had not done anything which the army would have disliked him to do. So they made this clear to put the onus back so that the PTI could not exploit uh, the situation to blame the army further about the alleged, mistreatment or even murder of journalists. Like in the past, it had happened, like in the case of this other journalist, I forget, when the ISI was blamed, I forget his name, who, after he had revealed infiltration by Islamic elements into the Pakistan Navy. So the Arshad Sharif case was different. And in fact, the Chief Justice has now been asked to take over the inquiry of the murder, and he has set up a new committee. But basically, the Kenyan authorities, the Kenyan police, who are probably complicit in his murder, are stonewalling further efforts by the Pakistani authorities to come to the truth in this case. But certainly, I don't think the army can be blamed for involvement in the matter.
Sir, Pakistan, I mean, the economic crisis is getting worse by the day. The IMF is negotiating. There's a lot of things going on. There is social unrest, terrorism on the rise, and we know who pulls these strings in Pakistan. So, do you perceive that after 1970 and 71, when Bangladesh happened, this is the most serious existential crisis the Pakistani army is facing?
Pakistan generally is facing a very, very serious economic crisis. That is for certain. And in the past, you see, the army itself has not wanted to tackle difficult economic situations. They always pass it on to a civilian facade to deal with because they are afraid of any direct attempts to cut down their own budget or to cut down or whittle their own economic or commercial empire through the various foundations that they have. Now, this time, whichever government comes to power or is in power and has to deal with the IMF conditionalities will have to approach these areas which have been no-go areas for
Mm,
any administration to cut
mm,
down on expenses and to try to raise resources. So they will have to encroach onto these areas. How this happens and how much the army allows it to happen will definitely remain a very crucial point we will have to observe. But in that direction, Pakistan will have to go in that direction if they are to bail themselves out from this difficult economic situation.
Sir, one final question. General Sharif, during his retirement speech, said that the Pakistani army will henceforth be non-interfering in politics, be apolitical, and but given the embedment, the way it is embedded in Pakistani politics, do you actually see this happening? Pakistani army becoming apolitical?
The short answer is no. It will not. It will only there will be a variation of the extent to which it will get involved, and this tone will have to be set by the new army chief, and it will of course depend on so many other factors. So for so long they have controlled the situation. They cannot just take hands off and let the country drift into disaster. They will not allow this to happen. So I don't foresee them to have completely no role in politics, but they may do it in a more discreet, more acceptable manner because they are aware of the uh, very consistent, if not too strong, but dislike of the army in civil society also, which is a simmering sort of a phenomenon. Just like anti-Americanism is, so is the dislike of the army. But at the same time, the people including the politicians, the political parties, if they see some good governance coming, they will fall in line with whatever the army's diktat is to the civilian politicians who are trying to improve the situation. So that is how the situation will continue to unfold. And the army will not do a hands-off. What Bajwa said was more for his own effort to go into history as somebody who would be remembered. Unfortunately, his role would not be praised or found, and now he is, of course, history. He has retired. So just as any other retiring chief, he will fade into oblivion.
Would like to conclude this conversation on that note, sir. Thank you for sparing time for us and sharing your views on the evolving situation in Pakistan. Thank you so much, sir. And we would like to come back to you in the future to discuss similar issues. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you very much, once again.